easiest way to answer this question between the what and the how, and I like how clear this question is. You tell me what to do, but I don't know how to do it. We can tell you, relax, chill out, don't be so outcome dependent, back off, give her space, right? That's all the what. And that's really easy shit to do, right? Just stop this. And then the start what? So, well, okay, I'm stopping all this, but what do I start? The simplest and the most complex answer is start getting into your own lane, staying in your own lane of well-being, understanding that by yourself, with your men, with your books, in your own mind, there is no need for emotional stress. There's no need for a sense of death and dying. There's no sense that you're going to be gutted on the floor. And the very first thing we do in deep coaching is help you understand the deeper sense of well-being and where it comes from. Right? We first start out talking about values and principles and what your non-negotiable terms are, nuts as Wayne Levine calls them. We go into talking about how we get programmed to be nice guys, getting into the psychology of how we got to the point to where we depended on external validation and affirmation for our daily sense of well-being and our daily sense of importance, our daily sense of connectedness. We don't believe it's unhealthy to be connected in a loving relationship with a woman, but it is unhealthy for a man to source all of his sense of well-being and his peacefulness in a relationship with a woman. In fact, that's what we call neediness, and that's what we call outcome dependence, and that's what eventually turns women away from the nice guy, is a guy who seems to have an unending need for affirmation and attention. So the how part, how can we stop being hummingbirds? How do we learn to override our emotional responses and silence our little child? We call him the little boy. And a lot of places will tell you to silence the little boy and shut him up. And that isn't what Wayne Levine meant in the book, Hold On to Your Nuts. For those of you who are new, Hold On to Your Nuts by Wayne Levine should be your first book you read as part of this community. Silencing the little boy means hugging him, putting him in a chair right next to you, not duct taping his mouth and blindfolding him and putting him in a trunk and sinking him 20,000 leagues under the sea. It means understanding that your little boy is always going to be there. He's always nervous. He always wants somebody to pay attention to him, to tell him he's good and tell him that he's okay. When a man becomes clear that he's already okay and he knows he can father the little boy, we learn to set him down and talk to him about what he's worried about. Well, we can read recent posts. She's ignoring me now. She's getting tattoos. She doesn't want to talk to me anymore. She's ghosted me. She's not, she is doing all this stuff to make me unwell. Well, the hummingbird husband wants to know, why are you doing this? Why are you making me feel that way? But the how is getting deep into why you're okay as you are. You were okay when you were born, and this is a very deep dive just for this introductory question. You were born okay. Very shortly after we're born, we start to get conscious enough of shit that scares us. But your natural state is okay. And in deep coaching, we go deeper into each individual man's baggage about why he doesn't think he's okay. The stories in his head about what he needs to feel calm, cool, collected, worthy, and valuable, all by himself when he's all alone and nobody's there to mirror back that he's okay. For us good guys, men who have a history of using women as a mirror of our own well-being and getting them to reaffirm and lick our wounds of insecurity, we start to learn that there's another way to think about well-being and another way to think about masculine value. And it is not all in the context of the opinion of a woman. And it's one of the hardest things to learn in this, because we think early on that that's what she liked about us, that we paid so much attention to her. Yes, early on, women do like a lot of attention. But as we get into our 30s and 40s and 50s, our insecure sense of loneliness and emptiness that can only be filled when she tells us that we're okay and that I'm okay and that everything's okay, it becomes a huge burden, especially when a woman is starting to pull away from this sense of obligation she's had as a wife and mother. She's getting tattoos, right, to talk about one of the later posts we got today. She's getting tattoos and going away. We start to get this very insecure feeling that we're about to be abandoned. And so the little boy starts screaming, pay attention to me, talk to me, tell me what's going on, what can I do? And that's the hummingbird. The hummingbird is always looking for the next hit of cocaine, and that cocaine is feminine approval and feminine attention. How do we learn to override our emotional responses and silence our inner child? It comes from some deep understanding, deep coaching and reading to know that your inner child is not really a thing. You just think it is. It's getting into the realm of thought. And you think that you're in trouble. You think that you're at risk. You think your safety is threatened, and that your well-being is all in the hands of this woman who now is getting tattoos, drinking too much, cussing more than she used to, and disappearing to her sister's house for weeks at a time. And you think it's all about you. And that's the immature little boy who starts to believe that everything happening around him is happening to him. In deep coaching, we find out who the mature man is. We reveal the mature man, and he coaches the little boy in understanding that everything he believes about inner well-being and inner security and self-worth, everything he was taught early on was all a lie. That's part of men's coaching, is to get rid of some of the bullshit that we were taught by our parents, our moms, and also by the women in our lives. How do we learn to override that emotional response? You can't just override an emotional response by saying, fuck this. This is what alpha 1.0 angry men do. They override their emotional responses and silence their inner child by locking him in a case and throwing him to the bottom of the ocean. And he becomes a big, blustery, bully motherfucker of a man. And he's angry about everything, and he's scared of everything. And everything he does looks brave and bold, but it's actually coming from his little boy who's mumbling behind the duct tape he put around his mouth. And so what we have to learn here is that we have to talk to that little guy and understand why he's been so scared, and start to laugh with him and put our arm around his shoulder and bring him with us. And every time we get triggered between now and the day of our death, which we do, right? We're not going to work miracles here. We're always going to be triggered the rest of our lives, but we have to talk to him and say, hey, what happened there, bud? Like you're talking to your son. What happened there, bud? Well, did you hear what she said? Or did you see she got a tattoo? Or did you see her like that guy's post on Facebook and whatever? Yeah, we have to father the insecure boy, and you can't learn to father the insecure boy until you stop being him and you see him as just an apparition. He's not real. You just think he is. So we get into the nature of thought. And what we want you to answer this question, what we want you to think when the hummingbird is flying and you have an emotional response you don't know what to do with, know that your emotions are not real. Your emotions are not real. That's how women operate most of the time. They think their emotions are their bitter truth, and they will defend their emotions all the time. The male psyche has a slightly different ability in our structure to go, wait a minute, I am not my emotions. I am my thoughts. My emotions were created by thought. What was the thought that made me so pissed off? Why did I think that thought? What's another thought? And so we start to see that we can control the emotional world by understanding our psychological world.